Chapter 3. Saturday, 8th of October 2016, 3:45 a.m. Monarch Tower, Riverport, Massachusetts. On the 29th floor of Monarch Tower, Beth Wilder watched a 2-year-old girl take a short, staggering run and headbutt the palm of her father's hand. Full of beans as still in Kyoto time, her mother looked like she needed a drink, but happy to be in America and reunited with her husband. Lorelei Gibson was the unofficial mascot of Chronon 1, Monarch's special project Pride and Joy, the 1%, the 9 operatives out of 112 candidates who had the experience, adaptability, and mental fortitude to get through the basic and advanced Chronon training without losing their shit and washing out. Chronon 1 wasn't the only squad of Chronon-enabled operatives. Technicians were trained for lightweight, short-term operations. Strikers were heftier, flashier. Juggernauts were still in the test phase. They were scary as shit, but over-designed in Beth's opinion. Randall Gibson's crew was different, trained to adapt, survive, and operate at peak efficiency within prolonged zero-state exposure with using minimal gear, with negligible psychological impact. They were rock stars, and they were concrete. Gibson, his second-in-command, Donnie, then Irene, Reeves, Dominguez, Voss, Mully, Bristol, and Chaffee. Chronon 1, the jewel in Special Project's shiny crown, proof of what was possible. Question was, why were they gathered here? Beth watched as Gibson hunkered down in front of his daughter and held up his palm again.
"What does the billy goat do?"
he drawled, thick as molasses.
"Come on now, show me what you got."
Beth knew he was playing up to the crowd that he gathered on the mezzanine. Groupies from admin, industrial, pharma, and all the rest. Lorelei giggled, toddled at her dad, and flumped her head into his hand. Onlookers cheered. Lorelei plopped her hands over her face, embarrassed. Her mother swept her up, blew a raspberry on Lorelei's fat little cheek. Lorelei reached for her dad, grasping inexpertly at all big brown eyes and "Hug, Dada." Gibson took her, Lorelei pressing to his fatigues, arms clamped around his neck.
"I got you, pumpkin butter. I got you."
Yeah, the Gibsons have it all. Beth envied Lorelei's ability to love like that. Beth barely remembered her own father's face. Horatio nudged her. "Don't feel bad." Horatio was a white dude in his 30s, handlebar mustache, wearing a theater sports t-shirt. "Don't shoot, I'm a plot device." Hilarious. Do I look like I feel bad? Beth wasn't super tight with most of the other Monarch security personnel, but the guys over in Innovation liked her just fine. "Cheer up, dude. Better people than you washed out of the C1 program." Beth blinked. "Better people?" Horatio backpedaled. You know what I mean. Shit. Yeah, I know what you meant. Do you know what's going on?" Beth had made it a good way through the tryouts, further than most. Flaked at the last hurdle, now she was mid-level Monarch security. Stable, vanilla, unremarkable. Just how she liked it. Horatio shook his head. "No, I spent half today trying to get our product demos into showable state for the gala tomorrow night, so I haven't poking around as much. I was banking on Will Joyce helping me to get the platform stable, but totally flaked out on me. Hey, are you free? I need a newbie to run through our flow, see what you got snagged on." "Sorry, plans." Yeah, right. The mood on the mezzanine changed. The crowd dispersed. Gibson's smile vanished. He handed his kid back to his wife without even looking at them, which meant Martin Hatch had just made an appearance. His wife understood, turning and leaving without a word, child in one arm, dragging her luggage with one other. Yup, there was Hatch, a tall, good-looking motherfucker with a killer smile he rarely deployed. Luminous midnight skin and a voice that was pure alpha wave richness. He scared the shit out of Beth. Ugh, Horatio rolled his eyes. Gibson may be big dog, but Lord, he's got daddy issues. The way he looks at Hatch, I'm surprised he's not picking out curtains. The elevator doors opened. Gibson's wife dragged their luggage inside. Lorelei called for her dada. If Gibson heard, he didn't react. The doors closed and they were gone. Beth walked out of the project management bullpen and hung by the door. Next to the elevators, Hatch had one broad hand on Gibson's shoulder, addressing the team. After a while, the chosen 9, Chronon 1, followed Hatch to a glass-in meeting room. Beth stayed back, watching. Gibson never took his eyes off Hatch, hardly blinked, nodding sharply to anything the CEO had to say. It was a short meeting. Hatch departed. Chronon 1 filed out, marched briskly past project management. Gibson saw Beth as they passed. "Yo, Wilder," he called out, all Louisianan. "Looks like the squad's got something on the boil tonight," she said. The squad came to a halt while Gibson broke off to get closer to Beth. "Your shift ends around 6, yeah?" "My squad's on call." Monarch Actual didn't say why. "I'm gonna need to blow off some steam later. I'd like to give you a ride home," he smirked. "You say yes this time or what?" Gibson had the corn-fed steroidal physique of a career operator and the face like a thumb. Whatever juice he was on expressed through his sweat, sour and chemical, half masked by liberal splashes of green Irish tweed. "I know about the gym bag in the trunk of your car. I know what you keep under the bottom lining. I know where the blonde hair caught in the zip came from." "No thanks." "Treat me nice and maybe you'll find out what you're missing. I'm talking about C1 now, pumpkin butter." Irene hitched a smile behind him. She was loving this. Sometimes we still watch your washout footage for a laugh. All that screaming," he waved his arms around, "calling for daddy. God damn, Wilder." "Hey, boss." Donnie was a lightweight, tightly muscled, shorter than Gibson. "Come on, almost showtime, yeah? Let's do it." Gibson kissed his finger, waved her off. "Later, pumpkin." Horatio crept over. "Do you think tonight has something to do with Project Lifeboat?" Beth turned on him. "Don't ever talk about that, especially in this building." Saturday, 8th of October, 2016, 3:45 a.m., Riverport University. Jack zipped his jacket against the cold and headed down Founder's Walk, hands stuffed in pockets. Gone were the electrically retrofitted gas lamps he remembered, the 70s-era garbage cans, chattering sprinklers, the occasional stray dog, and the grandfatherly field of the scattered buildings. They had been replaced by track-lit paths, trimmed hedges, solar-powered lamplight, and buildings that evoked a future Europe designed by robots. All steel, glass, angles, and facets. A guy in a Letterman jacket rested with his sleeping girlfriend on an ergonomic bench. Behind them, an older woman in a Ramones t-shirt twirled a set of LED poi, inscribing Mobius figure 8s in the air, strobing red and green. In the distance, a 3-sided info screen wished passerbys a pleasant evening and directed them to the nearest campus exit. The only thing out of place in this better, brighter Riverport U was the library, a tottering old dame of a building from a time few cared to remember. Jack hadn't set foot in there since a senior year orientation tour. It was a shock to see the changes time had wrought. The protest camp was in the largest triangular section of lawn he had seen from the street, a collection of tents and canvas shelters, ringed by a makeshift wall of wilted placards, bicycles, sodden bunting, and plastic sheeting adorned with spray-bombed anti-Monarch logos. A few sleepy-eyed protesters shambled from one tent to another, to the mixed soundtrack of acoustic guitar and Rihanna's last hit. Jack wasn't sure if the people inside were winding down or waking up. In the east, the sky was lighting up steel. The last time he had seen dawn over this town was from Bannerman's Overlook. Again he thought of Zed, wondered where she was, and why life had pathed the way it had. He had spent the first 4 and a bit years following what passed for leads, things Zed had said, references she had made that sounded like slip-ups rather than another fiction. He was never going to know who she was, where she had come from, or where she had gone. That was just the way it was. After 6 years, he was beginning to make peace with that. Or he thought he was, until he found himself here again, seeing Zed's house, the 7-Eleven where they pour vodka into a Slurpee on a Friday night, the bridge where she free ran, the skate park where she spent some afternoons. He could feel the clear ache pouring into his cracks, and he needed to get out of Riverport before it set and became a part of him again. Hey, if you're waiting for the demolition, it isn't happening until 11 tomorrow. Take a flyer. The girl was in her early 20s, scraps of day-old, day-glow zinc still visible on her cheeks. She was cherub-faced and surly, zippered into thermal hoodie, and proffered a flyer identical to the one Jack had peeled off the sidewalk out front. How's it going? He gestured toward the old library. Are they still going to tear it down? Yeah. If this were happening in Europe, cars would be burning. Well, I don't know about that. I mean... Oh, yeah? She snapped. No time, no time. Got some importance going down? Your dog walker forgot to pick up Mr. Snuggles' homeopathic Prozac foam? You're looking at history. An abstract concept made real, and it's standing right there. It was built in a different world, by people with different values. That library is more than knowledge. It houses. It's shelter from another age. A time capsule, and all that makes it irreplaceable. Once it's gone, we can't fake it back into existence like so much other bullshit. For the good of others, at least pretend to give a fuck. A tripwire snagged in Jack's head. Listen, he said, low and even. Across the ancient world, 10,000-year-old relics are being jackhammered into talcum by morons from the Stone Age. In Australia, 3,000-year-old rock art is being dynamited to make way for coal that nobody wants. In Tasmania, some of the oldest forests on Earth are being wood-chipped for toothpicks. In China, millions of tourists are using legions of terracotta warriors as gum receptacles. In Africa, billionaires are bidding to be the one to kill the last of a species. In Greenland, the ice has pretty much vanished. Prime farmland is being fracked into uselessness. Food prices are set to triple. In 10 years, we'll be eating bugs. By comparison, this building was erected last week and has as much meaning as the beer cans your hashtag warriors are sleeping on. You're saying this doesn't matter? I'm saying this is a flyover town. You need to get out more. And I'm not your therapy. This is my backyard, fucko. I can't chain myself to a Syrian obelisk, but I can do this. So take your smarmy hat, been there, done that, high-minded fucking... Hey, sir. A rent-a-cop was marching over, flashlight in hand. He couldn't have been more than 25. Is this person bothering you? Amy, we talked about this. You and your people can't hand out your material, but you were warned. One more incident, you're out. The cloth badge on his sleeve flagged him as Monarch Protective Services. Ah, crap. Now the hangover. Guilt. He hated this part. Wait. Enough to be miserable. No need to be a miserable asshole. She didn't do anything wrong. He extended his hand to her. Give me a few flyers. I'm heading to the city later. I'll hand them out. Amy glanced at him skeptically. Really? Jack said. Amy handed over 5. The guard sighed, clicked off the flashlight. Can I take you somewhere, sir? If you're not part of the protest, you shouldn't... The guard's eyes narrowed. Jack took half a step back. Jack Joyce, right? Yeah, that's me. The guard extended a hand. You and me were in the same year, Riverport High. How you been? Amy sighed. Oh, hey. The guard laughed uncomfortably and waved a downward paw. You don't remember me. Doesn't matter. I was carrying more weight then. Amy surveyed them for a heartbeat, then turned on her heel and walked back to camp. Don't lose any sleep over it, Jack Joyce. We're just a flyover town. Hand painted in white on the back of her hoodie. Respect existence or expect resistance. She tossed the remaining flyers away, a fluttering pink cloud. The guard sighed. I hate to see the library go, but folks will be glad that these tents off the lawn. Who knows why the board let them camp there in the first place? You know that your brother doesn't work here anymore, right? An alarm went off in Jack's head. When people he didn't know mentioned Will, it almost always meant trouble. Sure, Jack lied. Hey, can you point me to the quantum research lab? I wanted to take a look and then I'll get to my hotel. Since when had Will worked anywhere, let alone in a respectable lab at a respectable university? It's almost 4 a.m., the guard said. Flight just got in, Jack smiled. Still on Thailand time. The guard laughed, pointed east. It's always lit up. Oh, hey, and stop by the tavern on Friday. Some of us are still hanging there. Dave's managing, so we get a discount. Jack gave a relaxed salute. Will do. See you. He had no idea who Dave was. A game plan Tetrised into his head. See Paul, clean up after Will, rebook an exit flight. If he did this right, he could be back in Asia before Thursday. Maybe he'd move on from Thailand, up stakes and get to Cappadocia, subsidizing the whole trip with a few articles on food, politics, and the underground cities. Or he could do a follow-up on the scolopamine trade in South America, or a character piece on the attendees of Lebowski Fest in Louisville, or pretty much anything that let him grab a few more years of not thinking about whether his life was panicked exercise and fleeing from himself. Jack! And there he was, right on time, saving Jack from further thoughts. Paul Serene. Less polished than his Facebook photo, way tighter than the frightened kid who thought he was going to die on Bannerman's Overlook 6 years ago. Clean, healthy, in a starched shirt that probably cost more than everything Jack was wearing. What are you doing lurking on the lawn? Paul hopped over a park bench at a leap, bounced onto Founder's Way. You know that guy? The guard? Didn't even get his name. He didn't ask why you were here? Strange question. Just told him I wanted to check out the fancy lab, then head home. Everything cool? Paul smiled, extended his right hand and pretended he hadn't heard the question. How are you, man? You know all that sun will have your face falling by the time you're 40, right? We're working on treatments for that. The reports are saying we could have Keith Richards looking like Gosling by 2025. Look at you. Jack opened his arms. Bring it in, buddy. Paul looked at him sideways, gave Jack his best "Are you serious?" face. Ah, right. Massachusetts, where people don't hug. How'd you survive 18 months in Paris? Denial, wine, and nightmares. Come on, I'll show you the lab. Give me the latest. When are you coming home? Jack zipped his jacket higher, stuffed his hands in his jeans pockets. Is it far? It's colder than I remember. Just around the corner. Don't change the subject. I'm fine. Thinking of maybe moving to New Zealand. I hear it's really livable. The last time you messaged me, you were talking about Kabul. The expat culture there has been covered. Time was all over it years back. You're still doing that? Being awesome? Reportage. What is that feeling? Oh yes, guilt. He was meant to be a working reporter, not someone making his savings last on a beach in Asia. You realize you've become a manifestation of Zed's fictional idea of herself, right? Beats working at Walmart. One day she ran away from home as a kid. The next day her dad was a millionaire astronaut who left her a bundle in the will. After that she was a witness protection. After that she was on the run from the mob. Had amnesia, had a terminal illness, was retired dental hygienist, trying to visit 50 states. I know. I was there. The stories were a game. She was real. He looked Paul in the eye. She saved your life. A helicopter thudded overhead, spotlight briefly playing across the quad, light turning to spears as it fell through the sparse canopy of elms. You said you work for Monarch? Yep. They're funding you? Monarch Innovations, their fringe R&D division. It's been a total game changer for outliers like the Riverport lab. 10 years ago, everybody lost their minds because someone opened a Wings over Riverport. Now this? People do like chicken. Jack had to admit, the new campus did a good job of killing nostalgia. It was beautiful, pristine, calm, and confident. It said, we've got it under control. Things are going to be okay. He thought about the cops in Chiang Mai, rolling on Monarch tires, and Riverport cops working hand in glove with Monarch security. Monarch agricultural drones were used seed bombs to replant swaths of clear-cut Amazon, while Monarch Pharmaceuticals subsidized the espresso machines of hard-working unlicensed cab drivers. Hey, funny thing, that guard said Will used to work here. Paul smiled uncomfortably. Yeah, about that. When did you last hear from your brother? Here it comes. A week ago, he said I needed to come back and talk sense into you, actually. Paul stopped in his tracks. That why you're here? Not because I asked you to? I'm here because he sent me that email, then you asked me to. What's going on? The message you left was pretty... what's the word? Grandiose? Where's Will now? He wanted me to go straight to the house, but I figured I'd get more sense out of you. Paul chewed his lip for one thoughtful second, and then said, It's better than I show you. Fuck. Paul's eyes were locked on something over Jack's shoulder. The security guard had come back, was talking into his radio, looking in the direction and nodding. Come on, walk fast. Walking away from a badge at 4 a.m. wasn't something Jack questioned. He and Paul had started with egging houses on Halloween, graduated to breaking into junkyards to shoot zombie footage for high school film class, moved on to a short-lived flirtation with growing weed in his bedroom, and ended in that final scene with one of the state's more serious killers. If Paul said turn away and fly casual, Jack didn't overthink it. Do you mind telling me what's going on? They reached the end of Founder's Way, turned right, and then... You've got to be fucking kidding me. Paul Serene's 20-foot-high face smiled down. The video board was attached to a facade of the old university lab, preserved within the vision-challenging lattice of the new quantum physics building dome. The view pulled back from Paul's mug, revealing him holding a rolling ball of light in one palm, before a benevolent sweeping gesture invited the viewer into what was presumably a brighter future. This was signified by the light ball enveloping the screen and Monarch Innovations sparkling into view. Before you say anything, ain't you pretty? Never mind. So benevolent, so constipated. Paul fished out a transparent laminate and moved to a clear security door by the main entrance. It wasn't my idea. I just turned up for the shoot. What is it you do here again? Paul swiped his card. Nothing happened. He swore softly, repositioned it, tried again. This time the card swipe was rewarded with one of the most satisfying clicks Jack had heard. The brushed steel frame nudged open. Paul sighed with relief. Project coordinator, Paul replied. They recruited me out of college. I make sure things get done, effectively, on time, in a way that gets people excited. He held the door open. After you. The interior of the glass atrium was warm, containing 3 stories of extravagantly empty space. The dome is a double layer of 3D printed textured polycarbonate and reinforced glass. The air layer provides insulation. Depending on the position of the sun, the shadows cast by the canopy's asymmetrical architecture take on different aspects. Striations, crazed glass, shapes significant to people who know more about math than I do. Neat trick. On top of that, they've got the glass doubling as solar panels, providing a marginally positive carbon footprint. For the administrative sections of the building at least, some parts of the labs chew power like a motherfucker. Paul marched left toward the facade of one of the campus's original brick buildings, now contained within the expensive geometric umbrella of the quantum physics building's dome. The architect spends every alternative month under the Shinto vow of non-communication in a compound outside Hokkaido. It made negotiations and milestones a total bitch. Don't know why they gave them that prize, but it'll only encourage him. Paul glanced back the way they came. Follow me. I'll show you upstairs. Jack glanced back. Were you allowed in there? No sign of the guard, but that didn't mean he wasn't waiting for backup. You're not acting like we're allowed to be here. Buildings this expensive usually have doors that work the first time. Whose face is on that screen? I don't know, but he's smiling like there's a gun to his head. A hazard-striped security door opened into a freight elevator, which was set into a facade of the old building. Paul waved his card through the scanner. You've seen a lot of weirdness, yeah? Paul wasn't shooting the shit. He was double-checking. A 15-inch screen on the elevator's opposite wall flashed to life and provided us a rundown of Paul's appointments. None. It advised that he was 5 hours early for work, and that Monarch Innovations does not approve of more than 10% employee overtime in a given month. An MIT-sourced graph appeared to support this philosophy, and the screen wished him a good morning. I have now, Jack said. Paul swiped the card again, tapped the top floor. Jack noticed the tension in his face. "Hit me with the weirdest," Paul said. "So is in Belize. That's in South America." "I know where Belize is, Jack." "So I was in Belize, and I made friends with 2 lady pimps. I'm gonna help them save a horse from being beaten to death by some scumbag who owned a racetrack. That's..." The next morning, I officiated when they fought an early morning duel over the beautiful prostitute they had both fallen in love with. Paul eyeballed him. 2011, straight up code duello. Paul considered. "How did it end?" "Marriage. All 3 of them. Quite happily." "Huh. Life's short. So does that qualify?" "Not even close. This is our floor." The doors shushed open onto a long, dark corridor. A single door was rim-lit at the end. "This doesn't feel like it fits inside that old building." "We added a couple of reinforced top floors to suit our needs. We're above the canopy at this level." Recess lighting kicked in at ankle height, following them toward the door. "Once we get inside, I'll need your help to set a few things up. How familiar with the theory of relativity?" "I'm relatively familiar." "Still like sci-fi?" "We prefer speculative fiction." "Well, let's say you're about to step into it." Clinically white armored doors rumbled open at the final swipe. "Except this is anything but speculative." Paul walked into darkness. Jack followed. Lights clicked and thudded, revealing the chamber section by section. Vertigo kicked in, Jack's hands closing on the cold steel of the safety rail before him. He was looking down into an octagonal tech pit, NASA white and hairy with red and blue cables snaking out of discrete access panels. Suspended at the center of the hollowed-out geometric sphere of the room was another geometric sphere. Held atop a high-tech dais, the sphere was made of dense-looking dull metal, each face of it jacked and wired with tons of heavy-gauge cabling. The cabling poured from the sphere and down into subfloor cavities, or was draped over and connected to a metal walkway that ringed the sphere. Jack might have thought the walkway might be for maintenance, if it wasn't for the sealed-off airlock chamber sitting out of place on the other side of it. Paul didn't waste time. After swipe-locking the door behind them, he leapt down the steps to the left and headed around the octagonal pit toward a glassed-in observation room. How much money did they give you? What am I even looking at? The in-room intercom piped Paul's voice from 4 corners, weird acoustics making him sound like 2 people at once. He spoke absent-mindedly, working a 2-screen control panel. "The beginning of a new age." He stopped abruptly, clattering keys falling silent. While he spoke again, his voice was flat with realization. "You're looking at the death of regret." He smiled. "Huh?" Jack studied the construction, trying to make sense of it, and failing. "Where have I seen this before?" "Nowhere," Paul said, busy with the monitors. "It's proprietary." Something was off about this. "Paul, you're bullshitting me. This isn't proprietary." Jack pointed out the viewplate. "Tell me that thing isn't based on Will's work." Paul stopped what he was doing, formed a response, opened his mouth, changed his mind, shut it again. "Okay," he said, and went back to his keyboard. "I won't." "The security guard told me Will used to work here." Paul was the only person on Earth Jack trusted. If there was deception here, he would not be able to withstand it. "I know you hate being lied to," Paul said, reading his mind. "But I would point out that I didn't lie to you. I just didn't answer your question in a timely manner, so... We cool?" "Why am I here?" "I delayed explanations until you saw the promenade for yourself. You have to understand everything in its proper context." "Don't give me long answers to simple questions, Paul. What did Will do, and how bad was it?" Paul was still tapping keys, dragging his finger across view screens. It didn't look like he was getting anywhere. It kept reprimanding with error messages. "What are you doing? Do you even know what you're doing?" "Yes," Paul said, exasperated, and produced a collection of post-it notes from his pocket. Waved them as evidence. "I know what I'm doing," the view screen barbed again. "It's just," Palm said calmly, "trying to to work. Quickly. Because in less than 5 minutes, your security card buddy is going to come through that door with at least 3 friends and change the course of human progress forever. Paul returned to what he was doing. For the worse, just so we're clear.